Okay, so welcome everyone to Cyber Sangha again. Um, First of all, I want to uh, acknowledge the Pope just passed away, and I'm also from Argentina, so we were same country. And it's spring, so just Passover and Pesach. And so uh, this is a kind of renewal time. And so I'm delighted to have Karuna and Dharma Shakti with us tonight or this morning. Um, Also, for those who are new to Cyber Sangha, so Cyber Sangha was really the brainchild of Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, my teacher for the last 30 some years. And he thought, why don't we bring the teachings and information to the broader world? And this was before COVID. So we were able to have Zoom and these platforms and actually translating into different languages. Lulu, thanks for being translating into Spanish now. And so this idea that all this knowledge can be shared freely, openly in different places. And so sometimes we have more than one language being translated. These stay recorded and they're available to you anytime, cybersangha.net. And to be able to do this, there's a group of people behind the scenes, including Milos as the host technical, Polly doing all the part on the background and organizing. So thank you both, and so many others that are also helping. And so Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, when he started this idea of Cyber Sangha, it's like it's for everyone. And it's what kind of things we want to bring. We want to bring spirituality. We want to bring health. We want to bring science. Want to bring well-being. And actually, we were just in our main center in Ligmincha International in Virginia doing a wellness retreat. And so we were talking about some of the things that we'll be talking today as well. And so let me introduce our speakers. Karuna Diedericks, who I know for many, 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 many years, and it's great to have you here. And she lives in Houston, as I do, and so we get to spend time together as well, and have done many programs together. And she's a multidimensional wellness professional who really integrates ancient Ayurvedic wisdom with modern science to promote holistic health. She is a clinical Ayurvedic specialist certified by the California College of Ayurveda. She's a culinary medicine coach trained by Harvard Medical School and the American College of the Lifestyle Medicine. And she's a plant-based nutrition expert certified by the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine. I know she's passionate about holistic wellness and the way that she cooks, and I've been in many of her classes. And she founded Karuna's Kitchen, which offers nourishing plant-based meals rooted in Ayurvedic principles and really made with high-quality organic ingredients. She's in Houston. She does a lot for the community here. And by bridging traditional Ayurvedic knowledge with contemporary nutritional science, she delivers practical evidence-based strategies that I hope she will share with us today. So welcome, Karuna.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali.
And Dharma Shakti, this is the first time I meet you, and so welcome, welcome. I'm really excited to hear more from you. And she's the founder and owner of Yogalution Movement, a donation-based yoga studio and community in Long Beach, California. And she has served in the healing arts since 1999, beginning as a massage therapist and then taught yoga since 2005 after training in a traditional ashram under Swami Sitaramananda. And with more than 5,000 hours of teaching experience and extensive training in traditional ashrams, she's also a clinical Ayurveda specialist and certified high-performance coach trained by Brendan Bouchard. She's deeply committing to making yoga accessible to all, regardless of background, through her studio and the free daily outdoor yoga on the Bluff classes, which has become a Long Beach landmark. So if you are in that area, please go. Her mission is really to empower individuals to embrace their authentic selves and realize the greatness within, fostering inclusivity and personal growth through yoga and spiritual awakening. She's often called the Tony Robbins of yoga for impactful blend of personal development and spiritual teachings. So welcome, welcome, Dharma Shakti. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
So it's spring. And so I want to focus on what should be doing more in the springtime, both of your knowledge, particularly I guess in general would be Ayurveda and yoga. And so Karuna, let me start with you, because we were sitting not long ago eating Indian food and thinking of, okay, what's actually good, and maybe what's good for me might be different for you. So maybe you want to do a little bit of, in Ayurveda, both the constitutions without getting very complicated, but also how foods are different for each of us and seasons. Let's start with that.
Okay, that's a good place to start. Thank you, Ale. Yes, Houston, we don't have a long spring. We have this very short period of rain, and then it's summer. So it's already starting to get very warm here. So the seasons actually in Ayurveda match up with the 3 doshas. So we have the 3 body types, which we consider to be natural constitutions, that they're in each and every one of us, but they tend to predominate the individual. So each individual may have more of a dosha, more of 1 or 2 doshas than the other third one. So the 3 doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, or Kapha. And the Vata dosha is, what governs movement and anything that flows in the body. So it's made up of air and ether, and it's also the connectivity of the body. It's like the space between the cells. There would be no cells, there would be no body if there was not space. So that is the Vata energy. So the Vata body type tends to be very light. It tends to be very mobile, energetic. The qualities of wind, that move, lots of movement in the body. But when it goes out of balance, it tends to be very dry. That wind dries the body out. It tends to get anxious because there's too much movement of thoughts and, energy through the mind, which is a place of Vata, because everything is happening on an ethereal level in the mind, right? So when there's a lot of Vata in the body, the mind tends to just have way too much movement. So there's certain principles that are very grounding and very balancing for Vata. Because it's so light and energetic, if it goes out of balance, you want to bring it down with something more moist and heavy and grounding in the principles of your practices and your food. Then you have the Pitta energy, Pitta dosha, which is the fire dosha, and fire and water combined. It basically governs anything that is metabolized, any metabolism, as well as transformation in the body. So any we take in images through the eyes that gets transformed into what we think. That transformation process is the fire in the body, Pitta. The metabolism, of course, in the digestive system. But anything that comes in is transformed thoughts, and like that is worked through this Pitta fire energy. So a person with a lot of Pitta, they tend to be very have that transformative energy, that they have strong metabolism. They tend to be very ambitious, driven, because they have that strong focus of being able to make changes in their lives and in other people's lives. They tend to be really good, passionate leaders. How, on the flip side, when that fire gets too strong, they then may get very irritable, very anxious, very agitated, controlling with other people because they're so smart and they have a vision, you know. They tend to want to have things their way because they already know, you know. So it's that strong pitta fiery energy tends to get out of balance, and then they also tend towards you know, the acidity and the inflammation or anything that's fiery, you know, in the digestive system, hyperacidity, acid reflux, and those things. The kapha energy, which is the earth and water, it is the energy of stability and strength. So anything that gives you, that anything in the body that's stable, that doesn't change very easily, is governed by this kapha, like the bones, you know, the skin. It doesn't change. It doesn't, you know, it does change, but very slowly and over time. So that is the earthy energy. It's also known as the mud of the body. So like the lymphatic system, you know, that's like the phlegm, the mud of the body. So this earthy energy in a human being who has a strong predominance of earth, they tend to be very calm. They tend to, you know, be very gentle. They have that watery earth mother kind of, you know, personality, and their bodies don't change. You know, they tend to be pretty stable. On the flip side of that, if they get out of balance and they have too much earth, they may tend to, you know, pick up a lot of weight and not be able to lose it, or they may become very stubborn, or maybe like hoarding, or, you know, greedy, because they're just gathering, and then the other side of that could be like a lethargy, you know, depression. So those are the imbalances that can happen during due to you know, excesses in the body. In terms of the seasons, would you like me to explain that? Or
Yeah, no,
just keep
actually,
going?
before doing that, now that you were saying the earth, I want to
Okay.
acknowledge that it's Earth Day.
Yeah.
So it's
Earth
great.
Day, right?
It's Earth Day. So this is a great to be talking about this, because of course Earth is not just one element, but it holds all. And so
Or fire.
celebrating
Yeah.
Earth Day, this is a good dialogue. So before we get into the spring, let me actually go to Dharma and see. I had a thought in terms of, when you teach yoga, now that you're also an Ayurveda consultant, like, do you bring some of that into your yoga, or the constitutions that Karuna was talking? Is that coming into your practice and to your teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So traditionally, you know, yoga was taught one-on-one, teacher to student, like most yogic and Eastern traditions. Here in the West, we like to do everything different. And so we have these large, you know, group size, big classes. So it can be a little trickier, a little more nuanced to bring the Ayurvedic elements into that environment, but it can be done. And so, yes, I'm considering the season, the time of year that we're in. I'm also just really taking in the energy of the classroom, noticing, you know, just the overall energy. It may not be that I get, you know, 10 students and they're all of a Vata constitution, but those 10 students can walk in with a very Vata energy, all of them. You know, the room can kind of be filled with that energy. So I will really teach to the room or to the group based on the season. If it's a super hot, muggy day, there's just a lot of heat in the air and people come in with that fiery energy because it's the middle of summer and they're agitated, then I want to teach a class that is a little more cooling and has a little more sweetness involved in it than teaching some really intense vinyasa class that gets them all fired up and amped up. So I definitely will bring those Ayurvedic concepts into it, and you know, really considering the elements that I'm seeing in front of me with the people that are in front of me.
Great, great. So yeah, let's I guess spring into spring. Karuna, yeah, you were gonna start talking a little bit about, okay, now that we are in spring, even though here in Houston it's already getting muggy,
Mhm.
but let's think of spring, because we have also actually, interesting enough, we have also people in the lower in the southern hemisphere, actually like your family, Karuna, in South
Yes.
Africa, but also some of the speakers, some of the listeners that are in South America and so forth. So for them is fall, but let's talk about spring because I think the majority are Northern Hemisphere of the listeners, but kind of consider that as well if you could
Okay.
as you talk about spring.
Yeah, so in Ayurveda, we consider 3 seasons instead of 4. The dead of winter is considered like it's kind of like a Shavasana, you always have a complete stillness, complete death. That time between that when we transition, there's always death, and then we transition. So this is the 4th season, or the kind of what we would consider the dead of winter. But the 3 seasons actually align very much with the Vata Pitta Kapha. So clearly, spring is a Kapha season with its earth. We even celebrate Earth Day during spring. Very somehow we in the West we tend to align with it without even knowing. Maybe they know, but the earth is there's earthiness in the air. So the earth is warming up, and it's kind of like the winter. It's like the polar caps are melting, right? So it's there's this much more moisture in the air because of the warming up of the earth, or at least like you said in the northern hemisphere. So as the earth warms up, the moisture increases in the air, and it tends to be very because of the heat in Houston, it gets muggy, but it also tends to be very lots of rain in most parts of the northern hemisphere right now. The Pitta season is clearly the summer season, the fire season, and that is what we'll all be moving into. The Vata season, which the southern hemisphere is moving out of into right now, out of the Pitta season, would be the fall. So where things start to dry out, there's more air, there's more wind, the earth starts to dry out into that Vata spacey coldness. And so there are definitely different protocols which with as the seasons change, that transition period is very important. How we handle the change of the season is one thing, and then how we handle what we do during the season is another approach. So both are important in order to maintain health. And what I love about Ayurveda, which has always totally resonated with me, is that we are constantly changing beings, and our environments are constantly changing. So there's this ebb and flow that happens as the seasons change, as life changes, as as we age. There's this constant change between what's happening in our body and what's happening in the environment, and it's about flowing with it without that struggle, but actually tapping into the natural flow of life where things change and we adapt to the changes with our diet, our lifestyle, our practices. Yeah.
Right. And Dharma, like you were mentioning this difference, right, between teaching one-on-one, where the situation of that person and you can kind of tailor it to these big classes. And also the same would apply, I guess, you don't know the constitutions, but it's spring now. So you have a spring class now. And what would be some of the things that would particularly be different when you teach classes in the spring than when you teach classes in other seasons?
Yeah, spring is an interesting time of year. Things are sort of coming out of that dead space, as Karuna was mentioning, that sort of winter time. Everything is, there's everything is fallen off the trees, there's no like life in the garden, so to speak. And so just like a cranky teenager, you have to wake up for high school. In springtime, we're sort of coming out of that sleep. And so, we want to awaken. We want to really start to awaken the energy, but with the awareness that there will be a sluggishness as we're doing that awakening, as we're trying to activate different parts of the body, different parts of the mind. Ayurveda works both with the body and the mind. We have that physical constitution, and then we also have a mental constitution. And so we really want to use springtime to sort of, like how we would treat our garden in the spring. We're tilling the soil and we're plucking all the old dead stuff out, and we're preparing it to really grow a nice, beautiful new garden that we can enjoy all through the summer and into the fall. So we want to, this is a good time to cleanse. I get a lot of yoga students who want to do cleanses and want to go on fasts, and they always tend to want to do it in the dead of winter. And I'm always encouraging them to just wait till springtime, because this is a good time to cleanse. It's the environment around you is more conducive to the results that you're trying to get. And that's the whole point of Ayurveda, is to really understand your environment, understand yourself, and how those two are interacting, so that you can do things in the most conducive way to really get optimal results. And so springtime, is that time for sort of sloughing off all the heaviness that we're feeling. And so I might teach classes that are, really activating the body and awakening the mind, but I might do it gradually. I might sort of work us into, this awakening the same way I would wake up my kids for school, nice and gently and gradually, but with a committed result to wake them up.
And so let me ask you a little more on this idea of fasting in the spring to support the results. Say a little more on what kind of fasting and what the results that you would expect.
Yeah, well, as Karuna had mentioned, the different doshas, or the different energies, have these different qualities. So wintertime is already about stripping away, right? There's a cleansing that's already happening, a stripping away. The trees, have lost their leaves, and everything is kind of barren. And so if we're trying to cleanse and strip away in a time where nature has already done that for us, right, then we can kind of tip the scale into a place of imbalance, because the season has already done that for us to some degree. And if we are trying to do it in the middle of summer, this is the high pitta season, where it wants to metabolize, right? It really wants that fuel, and it wants to take whatever you put into it and metabolize it into something. That fire is really strong and ready to take whatever you put into it and turn it into the fuel that you need to go do all those fun activities in the summer. But springtime really is that time for renewal. And so when we are cleansing during a time of renewal, there is a natural, as Karuna was saying, as the heat is rising, think of the snow melting, and that snow is now turning into water that is flowing. And so there's a natural energy in the environment that is about that healthy release from something that was maybe hard and stuck into now something that is soft and flowing, from that hard vata, that frozen snow and everything all kind of dry, into things are now melting and flowing and opening and releasing, just as the snow caps are releasing into the water, and that water is flowing out and nourishing everything as it passes. That springtime is the best time for us to be on a cleanse or do some kind of fast. Doesn't mean that you can't fast and cleanse whenever you want, but if you want to do it in alignment with the seasons in a way that's going to give you optimal results, what that means really is without creating imbalances, right? We don't want to create an imbalance. You can do something that's good for you, but if you don't do it in the right environment, at the right time, with the right support or the right tools, you can actually create results that you're not looking to create, right? Those imbalances. And this happens a lot in yoga. We get those pitta people, the really fiery constitutions, and they love their hot yoga. and they go to their hot yoga classes and they're wondering why they're getting headaches all the time, or why they're having rashes, and they're experiencing maybe a little more inflammation, or they're just overly agitated and really, really sharp. And they're already a fiery person. And now they're going and maybe 3-4 times a week doing yoga with extra fire in the room. They're exacerbating the amount of fire, and they already have a lot of fire. So what happens is it tips the scale into an excess of that heat. And that excess is where we get the imbalance. So Ayurveda is very much a beautiful science that is trying to, again, help us really understand the environment that we're in, the environment within our own bodies, so that those things can interact in a way that is actually conducive for our well-being. And we're not doing things that should be good for us, but in a way that create more imbalances.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Karuna, so Dharma was saying kind of the science of Ayurveda, right? And one of the translations of Ayurveda is kind of the science of life. And so again, coming to spring, and I remember some of the meals that we have done together of Ayurveda and meditation, and so we don't know who's coming, right? What are their constitutions and so forth. But when you were planning that menu, what do you think? Do you think about, okay, we are in Houston, what's available now? What's available, because yes, we have things from all over the world, but what's available here are we using more local? I mean, I know when you were at the farmers market, and so you want to say a little bit of that as we create, and as people that are listening are thinking of what things to buy for this season. And if it's okay to weave in, is how you got into all this. How does this come into your interest, and now you are doing this kind of lifestyle?
Yeah, this is the question, right? Because we all want to change our diets and eat better food. And the thing that I'm learning in my, I've been studying and practicing Ayurveda for 20 plus years, and I recently took up the practice of or the study of culinary medicine through the Harvard School of Medicine, as I told you, and I'm seeing one principle that, that just kind of goes through all the culinary medicine teachings that balances with Ayurveda, which is, letting go of the processed and ultra processed foods and really focusing on whole, fresh foods that are naturally available in our environment. And this is a principle that really, it kind of cuts out a whole lot of energy and thought and overthought about what to eat when we just focus on these. There's a lot of information. The jury's out on a lot of things. The jury's out on dairy. The jury's out on chicken and meat. The jury's out on eggs. But there's certain things that's never going to go. Never going to be questioned, and that's whole foods, whole grains, whole fruits and vegetables, and legumes. These things are staples across the board in all cultures. Ayurveda adds an extra element to this. Ayurveda uses the principles of the season, so what's naturally available. And yes, buying local at the farmers market guarantees that you're then going to buy what's in season for your climate. Like at our farmers market, we're gonna get farmers within 1 hour radius of Houston. So we know that that's been grown for this season that will be very naturally compatible with what our bodies are going through at this time. There's also my other rule of thumb for buying seasonal is buy what's cheap, what's on sale. Like when berries now, generally in spring, berries are $1, $2 specials on, like you go even just to the general grocery store, the most basic grocery store. I go to Kroger and the berries are $1 or $2. They're usually $3 or $4 or $5. So this is a way that you can understand what is, what is in season, what's abundant in um, in the environment you find in. And then the added principle of Ayurveda, which, which I see, studying culinary medicine, is the use of herbs and spices in a medicinal way. So not only to enhance the flavor and to make it very palatable, as you know, when the dishes that we prepare in Ayurvedic cooking are very flavorful, we also use the spices in a way that balances the food. So even if you are eating something that's not completely, appropriate for the season, we can balance it with food combinations as well as the use of spices. So in the kapha season that we find ourselves in, where there's a lot of moisture, as Dharma and I spoke about, a lot of sluggishness and heaviness in the environment, we then use stimulating spices, things that really peak the digestion, which really, like cayenne and black pepper and ginger, which really get the digestion going. So this is how we balance the principles. In the Vata season, just to speak to our Southern Hemisphere audience, we have we also, it tends to become cold and dry. So we want to eat things not too heating, because heat dries air out. So you don't want to overstimulate the heat, but you do want to increase the fire a little bit with a little milder, but also heating spices like cumin and ginger, also fresh ginger. Those are like fresh ginger is very good for Vata because it's moist and fresh, but also stimulating. So this is how the principles of the elements govern and really help guide us in Ayurveda to eat the right things for the seasons. Yeah.
Great. And it seems ginger is always there.
Yeah. Ginger's always there. Ginger and turmeric for everyone.
Great. Great. So Dharma, if we talk now a little bit about how you came into this practice, into both yoga and Ayurveda, what drew you to this?
Sure. As you mentioned in my bio early on, I was studying holistic health since 1999, and I was really into understanding the body from a very different lens that we get here in the West. And so, having gone to a beautiful school in San Diego about holistic health, becoming a body worker, I really got interested into Chinese medicine. The founders of that school really taught a lot of Chinese medicine. We had to take herbology classes. And so this was heavily emphasized in the school that I was in. And a lot of the philosophy was based on Chinese medicine concepts. And so eventually, I really wanted to go to acupuncture school. But because I didn't do college and I don't have a bachelor's degree, that was out of the picture for me. And I was teaching yoga at a beautiful yoga studio where the owner of the studio was also an Ayurvedic practitioner. And he had said, why don't you look into Ayurveda? And I had never, ever heard of this word ever. And so he said, it's very much like Chinese medicine. They share a lot of similar philosophies. And it'll be very accessible for you because I don't need a bachelor's degree to get into acupuncture school. And so, yeah, I got really lucky that the yoga studio that I was teaching at also was housing California College of Ayurveda. And they had their, I forget what it was called, but their satellite program where they would have, instead of being immersed on campus, they would have classes 1 week in a month. They were very intense classes. And that's actually where Karuna and I met. We went to school together. We graduated together. And yeah, I just really fell in love with Ayurvedic medicine. I grew up experiencing a lot of health issues. And I think most people that get into becoming health practitioners of any kind typically, struggle with their own healing journey. And so, yeah, I was really, really blessed to, make that jump from, one Eastern tradition to another Eastern tradition. And it just fit really well being a yoga teacher, studying Ayurvedic medicine. These sciences really are meant to go together. Yoga is a system that is helping us elevate our consciousness, whereas Ayurveda is helping us take care of our body, right, and the quality of our mind so that we can be on that journey of elevating our consciousness. And so these sciences actually go hand in hand to support our spiritual journey. And so already being a yoga teacher, I just really loved that concept as well of refining the body and really keeping the body healthy, keeping the mind very sharp, so that one can really pursue these ultimate goals of their yoga practice, outside of, what most people are pursuing in their yoga practice, which is to master the handstand pose or something. So, yeah, I've really always just been intrigued in these Eastern philosophies. And it was not what I was raised with at all, but something that very much aligned with me in my young adult life. And so, combining those two worlds of yoga and Ayurveda has been such a blessing and really helpful. I've raised my children strictly through Ayurvedic concepts. And it's been such a wonderful tool to have to reclaim my own power and help others reclaim their own power in taking care of themselves, right? And not needing outside support just for regular everyday stuff. It really is a science that helps you understand your unique sort of constitution. Like, why does ginger work for other people, but for me, it always, makes my skin itchy or something. Why do people do really well with echinacea, but when I take echinacea, I'm just like shivering all night. Understanding these elements as the core foundation of Ayurvedic science helps you better interact with the world that you're in, your environment that you're in. And so, yeah, I just really enjoyed learning Ayurveda to support the type of yoga and the way that I was offering yoga to the community to really help create more balance rather than provide yoga in a way that actually is aggravating people's constitutions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And yeah, now that you mentioned Chinese medicine in this wellness retreat we were doing, a former colleague of mine when we were both at MD Anderson, Dr. Wenli Liu, who also has a Chinese background. And so she was one of the presenters and she brought, and one of the things that, it's very similar to what you're both talking is this idea of, in a way, let food be thy medicine, right? Because it's not about kind of, even when we're talking about turmeric and ginger, we're talking about food here. We're not talking about, okay, take a pill of 100 milligrams of, it's like, how do you bring it into the kitchen, and how the kitchen in a way becomes a place of healing and the mat, right? And and so I think there's a lot about these confluence of these ancient traditions. And I want to use the word traditional medicine for these and not for conventional medicine, which is only a couple of 100 years old, whether these traditions are thousands of years old. And I just want to mention something that it reminds me when there was the first, what was called the first international conference of Tibetan medicine, and this was in the 90s in DC, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama was the keynote, and he says, "Thank you for inviting me, but actually I have to say this is not the first international conference of Tibetan medicine. The first one was in the 8th century. And in the 8th century, we had people from Greece and Persia and China and India and we're all working together. And I think it's so beautiful when I think of that and how much we lost of that. But I think in certain areas, like, with you and with other people, kind of coming together. So Karuna, tell us a little bit about how you came you told us, you've been a practitioner for 20 some years, but what drew you to it?
Well, my journey was actually through the kitchen myself. When in my very, very young, early 20s, I joined an ashram of the of ISKCON. It's the Hare Krishna movement, and sorry, my computer's. So in the ashram, food is very much a center. The kitchen is the center of the ashram. It's all about the food, and we're cooking everything from scratch. We're cooking for a community of 20 people on a daily, 100, 200 for festivals and events. So the kitchen is really a hub. And I found myself immediately drawn to the kitchen. My mother was an excellent cook, home cook, and my dad was like, very traditional South African cuisine. He would make the potjie course, on the weekends, is the Dutch tripod that you put over fire, and you make the whole meal in this pot. So food and celebration was very much a culture that I grew up with. And then moving into the temple and that temple community, it was taken to another level where we were just constantly cooking everything from scratch, and even our bread, everything was always made from scratch. So I just really loved the cooking practice of, of the tradition where food actually is meditative. Like cooking is meditation. We don't taste anything while we're cooking. We cook it as a gratitude offering first, and we first make a gratitude offering before we taste. So in order to do that, you really have to hone your senses, right? I got to the point where I could taste, I could smell if I've put salt in food. So I really had to really learn how to, through sight, smell, sound, understand how to cook properly. And so it really becomes a meditation of the heart, and where you're tuned in with your food. And people have told me that when they eat my food, they feel that connection that I have for the food. There's a love that develops. And so when I started studying Ayurveda, I took that, it was vegetarian cooking and plant-based cooking. And I started, I also, as Dharma mentioned, we were in school together at California College of Ayurveda. Just naturally those principles of adapting the food to the season, using the spices in a medicinal way, teaching people really immediately, as soon as I got my degree, I moved to Houston about 2 months, a couple of months after I graduated. I moved to Houston, and that was October in 2007, and in 2008 was the first time I taught an Ayurvedic cooking class. And it was kind of just divine synchronicity, because the first people that came to my class, I don't know where they came. I had 8 people in my very first class, and one person said all he did was Google Ayurvedic cooking class. I mean, it's like it was right at a point when people were starting to look for these alternative types of eating and cooking. And so I really was grateful that I, kind of I believe it was at the front of the wave with, introducing Ayurveda and Ayurvedic cooking to Houston. And so it just, I think that's always been my, I'm a natural teacher. Like for me, teaching, like if I learn something, I'm like, oh, I can teach this. This is just how my mind thinks. And so really making Ayurveda so accessible to people through food. And it's like we all eat every day. So it's like, how do you, incorporate these principles into your everyday life? And I meet people, years later that they learned a recipe, 10 years ago from me, and they say it's still part of their repertoire. They use it, as we all have certain recipes we replicate every couple of weeks, and they tell me that they still make that recipe every couple of weeks. And and it's like how to, teaching people how to cook is, is really how we bridge that knowledge gap. And it's also teaching people how to implement something that is Ayurveda is 5,000 years old. There's a lot of information. So how do you put that into practical terms, into what we do every day? And so this is the base of culinary medicine. This is the what's on the forefront of where lifestyle medicine is going right now, is that, okay, we can have all the research, and the research is clear, whole, fresh, plant-based foods are healthier. It's clear, the statistics are there. Now it's evidence-based. Now, how do we show people how to transition from a processed, ultra-processed diet into a diet that incorporates more of these natural foods? Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I think I told you that I also, my first incursion into vegetarian cooking was with the Hare Krishnas up in Boston. So
You didn't tell me. That's cool.
but I remember when I saw you the first time cooking at Pam's house, and then at the ISKCON, and so and then in the farmers market. So I know that love is palpable cooking, and when you come to the events at the Jung Center and so forth. So yeah, it's wonderful. So you also mentioned this aspect of food as meditation and as offering, right? And in this sense, you're not even tasting it. Partly, I take it, you didn't say this, but my take is that it would take out the purity of it, right?
Yes.
And so you want, and now, you're so in tune that you can even smell if it has the right spices and so forth. And then when it's ready, then you offer it maybe in an altar or, in a plate, and then you give it to the people, right?
Right.
So that's a beautiful way that we see in many traditions too, but in many also have been lost. So having this little offering and this meditation. So I liked this transition of food and meditation, and now, yoga and meditation, because again, and I think Dharma, you alluded to this, in a lot of places, yoga is seen more as this go get the body, maybe heat, even if I'm Pitta, and so how do you bring meditation with the yoga? I find personally, I mean, I teach Tibetan yoga, and I find that, by using the body, it's easier to embody the mind and to calm, particularly the Vata mind, but sometimes it's called the monkey mind. And so what are the tools that you use in that sense of yoga to connect to meditation?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. I think it's such a missing component to Western yoga culture and even our understanding of meditation. A lot of people think that they're meditating and they're really just sitting and trying to concentrate. And that is a precursor, it is a prerequisite to meditation. And so what we're really talking about is the ability to focus, right? According to yogic traditions and yogic teachings, like the Yoga Sutras, meditation is what happens. It's an experience that you have when your mind is so fixed on something that nothing breaks that concentration that you have on it. Nothing can interrupt it, right? So it isn't the sound of traffic that takes your mind, your monkey mind, somewhere else. It isn't the smell of Karuna's food being cooked in the kitchen that takes your mind somewhere else, which is a delicious smell and very tempting. I've been in the room many times when she's cooking, and the mind, it just goes right there. So, when we're doing the asana practice, the physical practice of what we call yoga, we are using the body as a mechanism that allows us to get to a place where we can meditate, right? So, in yoga, we start with what is most tangible and most controllable. And so that is the body, right? The next thing that is the most tangible and controllable is the breath. Then the next is the mind, right? So the body we can control a lot more. I can say, hand, go up, and it goes up. And the breath we can control a little bit more when we say, okay, take a breath in, a deep breath in, we can do that. But if my hands are holding up something very, very heavy, it is going to change my breathing at some point when I start to struggle. And so the breath gets a little harder to control, as well as the body. And so we're using these sort of techniques to learn how to stay in a place of control when things are challenging or difficult, so that ultimately we can be in control of the mind. And really, those practices, yes, they're there to help you, live life better, but they are also mostly there to help you meditate better, right? So your asana practice and your pranayama, your breathing practices, and what we call dharana, this ability to concentrate, which are all three main components to a yoga class, right? You're doing poses, and the teacher says, focus on the breath. Right? You're holding a pose, you have to be steady. And the teacher says, while you're doing this difficult pose, focus on your breathing. And so we're training ourselves to focus the mind in an environment that is difficult, where the mind does want to wander, where the mind does want to go to the ego, where the mind does want to go to that place of complaining and criticizing. But we stay steady in our focus. And that sort of trifecta of ingredients, the postures, the breathing, and the concentration, ultimately prepare the body and the mind to have a deeper experience when you do sit to do your meditation practice. It's all supportive of that practice, right? I'm sure Ale, if you are trying to do your meditation and you have a headache, it's much harder to, really sit in your meditation. The mind, of course, wants to tend to what's going on in the body, right? When we have low back pain, or we have sciatic pain, or, we have, stuff going on in the body, it's very hard to sit and focus. It's not impossible, it's just harder, right? And so when we are taking care of the body, maintaining the health and vitality of the body, we eliminate some of those distractions. And that allows us to have a deeper experience in our meditation, so that we can advance in our spiritual journey and our spiritual awakening. And so, our yoga practice really, nowadays, our yoga practice should be utilized in a way where it's helping to minimize aches and pains in the body, but also create more vitality and strength in the body, so that you can sit for that 20-minute meditation or 30-minute meditation practice, instead of after 5 minutes, my back is tired and my knees are hurting. My leg has fallen asleep. You really want the body, the physical body, to be strong and healthy and vibrant, so that it has the physical strength to hold that posture, but also the vitality to be in that posture for lengthy periods of time, so that you can go deep in your meditation experiences, right? And again, emphasizing that a big part of our Western yoga practice should have much more of a heavy emphasis on focusing the mind when we're practicing, because although the body is one impediment to our ability to meditate, the mind is the biggest impediment. And so we want to be able to have that vibrant body that is healthy and can sit, but then we need to cultivate the awareness, right, to watch the mind, and also to cultivate the ability to stay focused when that monkey mind is getting really busy and really loud, as it does. I mean, that's the nature of the mind. In yoga, they say that the mind is like a drunken monkey that has been stung by a scorpion. And so, we have to learn to watch. Before I got into yoga and Ayurveda, I was actually really into Buddhism, and I studied a lot of Zen Buddhism, later on some Tibetan Buddhism as well. And meditation was something that really drew me into the Eastern philosophies of just that control of self, that connection with self. And the mind is one of the biggest impediments that gets in the way. right?
Yeah.
And so our yoga practice, as physically oriented as it is, as it appears to be, is just one small component of what we're trying to increase the health and vitality of, so that we can actually have control of the mind, or rather control of our consciousness and our awareness, and how we are engaging with the mind.
Wonderfully said. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Karuna, you've been cooking for many retreats, and so any advice in whether in cooking or in eating, when we are in retreat, how do you think the meals for that retreat, at least in the tradition of ISKCON and the tradition that you grew up, I mean, what would be a meal, during retreats? We were talking with Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche this retreat that, people were saying how great the meals were. It's like, oh, good to know, because usually it's a place where it's easy to complain, right? Usually people do
Yeah.
not, most of the time, they don't complain about the teachings, but they like it. And there's something about the food. So tell us a little bit about what's a retreat meal in general, or if you have something for spring retreat meal.
Yeah, I think, of course, because retreats are focused on meditation and spiritual practices, you want to eat food that's not going to bog the body down. And I have seen, meditation retreats where people are eating, they're all about the food, and they're eating the brisket and all kinds of things. It's very in Texas, so that's what people love. Firstly, you mentioned also the eating, so that could also gives us not only the foods, which should be light and easy to digest and not all cause digestive imbalances like gas or bloating or sleepiness, because you eat a heavy meal and then you go and need to meditate, you're just going to fall asleep, so you really want to have meals that are light and easy to digest, but filling enough that you're not hungry quickly. So it is a delicate balance. I mean, as my meals are really 3-component based, legumes, whole grain or basmati rice, and fresh fruits and vegetables. Those are the 3 components of pretty much everything I cook, and spices, fourth, added secret ingredients. And so when you when you combine that in a way that it's palatable, it's really delicious, but it's simple, it's just the simplest of food, you just get a really wonderful effect for the body. Mindfulness while eating is very important, because like I said, not only is cooking a meditation, eating can also be a meditation. And so when you cook, and just to add to your point, not only does it affect the purity of the food when you taste, but exactly the way Dharma described what you do with yoga in trying to focus and balance the mind and not be disrupted. If all you're thinking about is how this food is tasting while you're cooking, you definitely disrupt that connection that you can feel while cooking. So really kind of meditating that this is a gratitude. The cook, it's almost like the food starts to manifest through the cook, becomes a divine connection. And then, of course, the element of mindful eating, not having heavy topics or arguments while eating, having light music playing, those kinds of elements really enhance the digestibility of foods. Just kind of chewing properly. We tend to eat very fast. Of course, you're not going to do this on a retreat, but most people eat in front of the TV or watching the news. I think that is probably the most destructive thing that we can do to our bodies when we're eating, is to watch the news, especially in today's age. We're in that that we go into that fight or flight mode when we're watching the news, and then you're eating at the same time. All you're doing is stimulating more of that, and it's almost like a bird, just like pecking and waiting for something to go wrong. And so we really wanted that food to assimilate and digest and become part of our bodies. and give nourishment and vitality and energy. So, I always say we've missed the principles of food. Like the purpose of food is to give energy. So we eat, we get energy, and then we eat again and we get energy. That's how it's supposed to be. But it's all completely off balance, in the way we eat today. It's good that purpose of food kind of just got lost.
Thank you. I'll get back to you on that and on the spices to recommend for people that you mentioned already, but I want to come back to you on that. And Dharma, I wanted to see if you wanted to share with the audience kind of a breathing or a practice for spring, a short practice that you could share.
Sure. And it's a good segue to just, I think, an important and helpful point is, you're asking Karuna and I both these questions of like, how do we take something that's designed for specificity of the individual and apply it to a group? And so there is this concept of tridoshic in Ayurvedic medicine, something that is good for everybody. And there are some things that are just neutrally good for everyone across the board. And so I'll teach a breath work that is considered to be tridoshic and can be beneficial in the springtime, beneficial for any of the different doshas, also beneficial during any season, but always good to do. And a very common sort of, what is the word I want to say? Like a nice entryway into yogic breathing for all students, whether you're brand new or very experienced. So very accessible. So this is called Nadi Shodhana, or sometimes known as Anuloma Viloma. It's an alternate nostril breathing. And so as most Ayurvedic principles, we want to create balance. We want to come out of imbalance and into balance. And as Karuna was talking about the nervous system and fight or flight when we're eating food, when the body is in fight or flight, it cannot rest and it cannot digest. And so we want to regulate the nervous system. Always, always in the world that we live in, we want to be regulating our nervous system because we are experiencing so much that's causing dysregulation on a regular basis. And so this is a great breathing practice that you can do anywhere except for when you're driving to regulate your nervous system and without aggravating it in any way. So you are going to take your right hand and you're going to make the hang 10 sign. So you have the 3 fingers in the middle down, and then you'll take that ring finger and you'll bring it up. This is called the Vishnu Mudra. And you're going to put your thumb on your right nostril. And then you're going to breathe in just on the left side. And then you're going to hold the breath. Take that ring finger and put it on the left nostril. So you're just gently closing both nostrils. Hold the breath. And then you release the thumb and breathe out the right side. Good. Then you're going to inhale on the right side. Closing that right nostril. So just gently closing the nostrils and holding and retaining the breath. And then you release your ring finger, breathe out the left side. And again, inhale on the left side. And holding that nose closed gently and letting the belly be soft as you retain that breath. And then you release the thumb and breathe out the right side. Again, inhale on the right side. Hold and retain the breath so the shoulders are soft, the face is soft, belly is relaxed, even though we're holding the breath. And then you release the ring finger, breathe out the left side. Long, complete exhale, empty as much as possible. And then you'll again breathe in on the left side. And you'll hold and retain. And then you release that thumb and breathe out the right side. And we just go back and forth like this. We'll do a few more rounds. You're going to inhale on the right side. Hold and retain that breath. And It should feel a little difficult, when you're having to hold that breath. It's not a natural thing that we do often. Release the ring finger, breathe out the left side, really long, complete exhale. And there's a count that goes with this breath. So I'll start that count. Ready? We're going to inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you'll hold for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very long exhale out the right. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Breathe in on the right. 4, 3, 2, 1. And you'll hold 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale left. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big breath in on the left. 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale on the right. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. And hold. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And exhale left. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's release the hand. Keep your eyes closed and just take some deep breath through both of your nostrils, which you should feel like maybe there's a little more space in there now. We just did this for a few minutes, but if you do this a little bit longer, you'll feel a lot more space in the mind, space literally in your head. And because we're in kapha season, you probably feel like you were clearing out some mucus. Open your eyes when you're ready. It's very common when we do this. You feel like, oh, there's a lot of snot and boogers that are clearing out. And that is one benefit of doing pranayama, is clearing those channels of the mucus. So that's to be expected. But this is a very simple breathing practice that you can do. And you can just do it the way we started, coming in very easy, just breathing naturally. And then eventually you add the count, which probably some of you noticed, breathing out for a count of 8 feels rather difficult. And so you're learning to control and regulate your breathing, which gives you more control and regulation of your nervous system, and ultimately gives you more control and regulation of the mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. Actually, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche lately has been focusing a lot in sleep, and he does that 4-8. He sometimes doesn't necessarily do the holding in between, but so he recommends that. And we do also a kind of alternate nostril breathing that actually ends with breathing through the central channel too. So there's so many great correlations and combinations. So thank you for this practice. This was wonderful. I know we're having to wrap soon. Karuna, I wanted to ask you, I know I can only imagine people asking again, could you remind us what are the spices for now, particularly, and you were very kind to do it both for the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. So maybe if you could repeat that just for people.
Sure. For now, kapha season, we can eat more of the hot spices, the pretty, stimulating spices like black pepper, and cayenne, and what else, Dharma? What else is really hot? Ginger. Dry ginger is better than in this time because it doesn't have the moisture, so it kind of we don't want to add moisture, so it will be dry into like the mucus.
Cinnamon
would, so it's heating. And we have in the vata season in the south, which as things start to dry out, we want to eat. We can have more turmeric or cumin. Cumin is warming without overstimulating the digestion. Ginger again, but this time fresh ginger, because now you want to add some moisture into the digestive system. And also black pepper is also good for the dry season. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you. Khichdi for all the time, which is
khichdi for all the time.
My favorite.
Yes, it's like the chicken soup of Ayurveda.
Which is basically, I mean, do you use it with different lentils every time and different rice, or it's, yeah.
It's
And ghee.
different, yeah, ghee. Yes, that's like Dharma was mentioning tridoshik, that's basmati
For
rice,
all three dosas, yeah.
lentils, split mung lentils, and ghee, pretty much universal for all the three body types. So yes,
Excellent.
kapha can have less basmati rice. So like when I have a lot of kapha, so when I make my khichdi, I actually put more lentils than rice. That's just better for my constitution. Or quinoa is also a very good substitute for the kapha season, especially now in the winter. So you can do your khichdi with quinoa as well.
Great.
And I'm teaching all of this in a 6-week class coming up next. It starts April 29th, and it is every Tuesday through June 4th. And I'll be teaching every Tuesday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So an hour and a half class for 6 weeks, consecutive Tuesdays. And if people want to find out more about it, they can go to my website, culinaryveda.com. And really I'm going to be expanding on every one of these principles in each class. So from the doshas, learning how to apply food to your specific dosha, to the seasonal eating, to mindful eating, to using spices, and and I'll probably throw in quite a bit of actual cooking tips in there as well. So
Thank you.
unfortunately, they won't be able to taste the food, but you'll get plenty of recipes to try on your own. Yeah.
Or come to Houston and we'll find a way of.
Yes.
And Dharma, anything that you want to share of people getting in touch with you? And
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram under Dharma Shakti. And I am currently working on getting some more online courses going for yoga philosophy. Right now, I do a lot more personal development work, but if you want to start a home yoga practice, you can find a 21-day course that I created, 45-minute classes for you to access a yoga practice so that you're just having something regular in your life. It's 21 days because they say it takes 21 days to make or break a habit, or at least get it started. And so you can find that on my website, which is yogalutionmovement.com. And then just click on the tab that says Dharma Shakti, and then you'll find all of my offerings there. And you can have lifetime access to the 21-day course. They're pre-recorded sessions, so you can do it anywhere you go in the world. Whenever you're traveling, you can just log in and still get your practice in.
excellent. It's a 3-doshic course.
Yes.
Thank you both. I wanted to add for people in Cyber Sangha, as many of you know, every full moon we do a practice where it's 24 hours. We start in the US, we pass the baton to Finland, we keep some going all around the world. The next one is May 12th. We always start at 10 a.m. New York time, so 9 a.m. Houston, and I guess 7 a.m. Pacific time, and then we go all along. And so anytime you want to join, it's a great practice that Rinpoche designed and that some of us guide, and it's beautiful to even just drop in for a little bit. It has both breathing and meditation and sounds. So welcome to join. And thank you again to everyone, and particularly to Milosh and Polly, and also to Karuna and Dharma. Thank you for coming here. And this will be recorded. It's been recorded, and so it's going to be available in cybersangha.net. Thank you again. It was lovely to meet you, Dharma. See you, Karuna, as always.
Thank you.